Hey, crypto media friends, Web3 media friends, welcome to another edition of Scouting with Minty. Just out here in the desert again doing some more scouting. And these are long drives to California, Nevada, Arizona, wheel of a desert. And yeah, some thoughts on just, yesterday we talked about something a bit more market intense and sort of, talking about discords and sort of discussion levels and discords. Today, man, I feel like today I feel like under the thumb of pressure with Web 2 and Web 3 converging more and more. And honestly, because Web 3 is drying up in terms of capital that's available to give us jobs, to allow us to sort of work in the space. A lot of people went full-time crypto last year, and that is becoming fewer and fewer in terms of transition. And my observation would be just the possibility of it is lowering because the capital is drying up. There are projects that are like, being made fun of right now for trying to create products or, collectibles, different types of physical collectibles, in an obvious, because it's just an obvious attempt, from a business standpoint, that they're trying to just get money. They need like whatever holders are left in this thing, and mind you, the ones that are still in those discords are probably low, but they need to try and find a way to make money. So they're going to say, okay, out of the 10,000, if only half of them bought this physical keychain imbued with our character and the Ethereum side, then we get a bit more runway, meaning more cash that allows us to exist in these positions. And I've been seeing it sort of dry up. A lot of mods getting let go, or sort of parting ways with projects, and the new ones that are coming in are typically doing it for a much lower wage, because there is a new economy rising in developing nations, from obviously not so much Fiverr level, but like really in terms of just how much they're willing to accept. It's much lower, because obviously it's economy of scale. $5 an hour is quite good in some countries, and so those that will take that work that's remote, that you kind of don't know who it is sometimes, especially with a mod. It's just like they're kind of typing back general questions and general answers to questions that are very, very general questions. And there's, I think, a lot of pressure now to revisit the Web 2 positions, the Web 2 jobs, that certainly in my case, that I have to really look at. Completing, because as you guys know, I'm in post-production on a couple things, and finishing actually has been a real challenge. There's some with really hard deadlines that, there's studio pressure, there's, we're gonna get that done. But every year I do a personal film, and it's really been the longest. I've been doing this personal film now for almost 3 years. I don't want to say because of Web 2, but because I did get obsessed with Web 3 and, developing the community. And if you look at my interview with Jordan Bain, fellow filmmaker, I think, we kind of echo that. Like, we fall in love with the community and the people, and this process of sort of onboarding and educating and introducing people to these new tools, and kind of talking about the possibilities, right, within the space. But maybe that's just me not wanting to work. Sometimes I think about this. I'm just like, maybe this is me not wanting to finish. And maybe that's to some degree true. I really was thinking about that on this really long drive through the desert, because that's all you do in the desert on these long drives is if you don't smoke, you really go into some pretty sort of trans-meditational driving. Hopefully it's still safe, right? But you start thinking about things in perspectives about work and about creative work that is, I think, one of those real blocks, and I almost forget it. And I almost did forget it in this process because I'm enjoying something else. And even though I do enjoy it, it is a distraction from, the core creative output. And, as I talked with Jordan about this, just like, sort of the output of the creative becomes limited when you're doing this type of work. To me, it's all kind of part and parcel with the next thing that I'm doing. And so for me, it's all process. But I do have to recognize that, by not wanting to or not finishing it as quickly as I could, I feel maybe I have some reservations about the work or something. And so I've really been thinking about that, and I think it's the weird part is I think it's going to be the best movie I've ever done. It's the toughest technically. There's a lot of technical precision in making something like this. As you guys may have been following along on the channel, like dealing with NASA, like a lot of really technically precise things, but also in shooting that in large formats and syncing the sound, like all these sort of basic things, but at scale become very, very challenging, and without massive budget, because I wanted to be inclusive in my casting, be inclusive in the type of story that I wanted to make. It becomes a hindrance, but technically you get through that as a filmmaker. Like, okay, well, I'll do this, and this will be the creative way to do it. And I think it's going to turn out really good. It's going to be the best I've ever done. And maybe to some degree, I don't want to see it get destroyed, because I feel like if I finish this film at this time and at this moment where feature films do not make any money, like, I'm going to be very straight up with you guys. And when I say feature films, I don't mean Marvel, I don't mean Disney. Even when they do that, they're like scaling back and putting it on their streamer these days, because that's where they're making all their money. Because the feature film, that format of an hour long for the past, decade, 15 years has been, not like, oh my gosh, it's in decline, but like, you'd much rather watch a really good, series that had, characters that would continue on. If it was good. And so, the format of, an hour and a half, 2 hours becomes very specific to the type of story, and so you can only, tell, like, hero's journey, and like, very, because you need to catch that audience, and like, if not, they're meandering about. You can't meander about for 30 minutes and expect people to say, oh, hey, that last hour, now that was good. No, you have to really have an understanding of the format so that you're making good use of the format. And that format isn't very marketable right now. Again, I don't know if it's our attention spans and our desire not to want to watch something that's like one and done. There's a lot of cultural things, at process here, or in process. And so when we have, it's like big rolling hills, really gorgeous though. And so in making movies, they don't make money at an independent level. And I think it's just always, not me. Like, no, this is like every filmmaker I know at this moment. And I'm going to be very honest, if you're not already making your money on the front end, you're not going to make any money on the back end. You're probably shooting it in a tax credit area, because what you're doing is you're giving a wealthy person or a wealthy entity a tax break. This is how you funded your movie. So what's left we have are these movies that are done by financiers who are friends of financiers and friends of lawyers and friends of accountants who have like high net worth clientele. And then they found this way of like, oh, if we take a loss on this movie, we can apply that. And there's a lot of creative accounting going on here, guys, that have allowed for the movie industry to survive 10 years longer than it, ostensibly not should have, but have been giving people and filmmakers, not all of them good, really, the ability to do these movies. And I say that because a lot of the times, from what I'm seeing, They're bringing on directors, not so much like, oh, this is genius. They're gonna play ball. They're gonna go to this Eastern European country, and they are going to play ball to execute the film. From an artistic standpoint, the best you can do is make a great film, and I've seen some of my friends do that. Went out there and said, okay, this is gonna be weird, and I can't communicate with my my cast or my crew through like 2-3 interpreters, but they make the film, and they to their credit, they're just like they make the best they can, and maybe it leads to something else for them, and it has for some. It's a series, right? And so that's kind of the for me the crux of my angst.
Onto Adobe Road.
Adobe Road. The angst of me maybe not wanting to finish this film as fast as I usually do. Usually I'm just as soon as I get post it, as soon as we're done wrapping, I just go right into it, and I just keep going and going. It's all part of one process, but I've been really stretching this out.
Turn
to
left
talk,
onto Adobe Road.
to educate in Web3, to participate in film summits, to go to NFT NYC.
Continue on Adobe
All these
Road
like
for
great
1 mile.
things. And at the end of the day, I'm not finishing this film, and I feel like maybe it's because if this film comes out and it doesn't have the biggest cast in the world, they're very great TV stars, but I've had that in the past. This doesn't have like the massive, huge, George Clooney's where like, okay, people are going to be excited to see him or her, Clooney and Julia Roberts again. Like, that's you would go and see that because you're like, wow, I love those actors, and you're going to go and see that. But to not have that support, knowing I don't have that support going into this process of distribution, I mean, this might be the first film I don't get distribution. I don't know. And so it's because even though I know it's my best work,
turn right onto 2 Mile Road.
It's my best work, it still is not going to be well received in the marketplace. And so I just have to be cognizant of that. Like it's kind of like doing an NFT drop in a bear market. Like you have to be cognizant
right 2 Mile Road.
and understand that this might not be well received by the industry given the times that we're in. Whereas if it were maybe a different time and like I don't know if the 90s were good, but like it was just like it seemed to be like, oh, independent films, and great, and you had the opportunity to maybe make a good amount of money and maybe make a name for yourself because you would get distribution, and then you're Kevin Smith and you're at Comic-Con, telling funny jokes in Hall H. So there's that model for it is gone. And so because that used to be this pre-sales, this foreign sales, this type of thing, it's pretty much gone. And if you go to AFM and you talk to the people, you see the product that they're trying to go after. You see sort of things, and even them and their booths and their demeanor, and those businesses that were once very, very healthy are very, very thin. Like the booths were like the last one was just like that I've been to was just like very like, here's a flyer, and here's like a really good looking person handing you the flyer, which they usually have, but like there was no presentation beyond that. Were as used to be like a fair amount of productions, and they would take you out for drinks and like just open bars at places to like try and mingle and like connect buyers and sellers. But in this process of what is independent film, I'm afraid that this might be my last one, and that's what's I think that might be holding me back the most in this process. And so just something to share about, like, again, the finishing of creative work. I know it can be hard, and I know a lot of you guys are working on many multiple projects at one time, but finishing is so important, and it's the only thing that I've done in my own sort of Web 2 work that has meant something, because you finish and then you can point to something like, yeah, I did that, and it's done. Maybe it's not perfect. Maybe it's like not Definitely could be better, but it's done, and then you get on to the next one, and you feel more confident about the next one, and then you do another, and then you do it in collaboration with other people and other entities and other businesses, and you develop a skill set that you feel confident as a creator. Okay, great. Now I can start executing, at very, very high levels. But I still also like to execute for myself, these passion projects. And this is just one that I've just been noticing that I'm just like, wow, I'm still in post on this. I've been post on this for like a while, and I think, a lot of it does have to do with the tech stuff, but, it takes me so much longer now to get into the tech stuff, or to get jazzed about, getting into that tech stuff, where I'm just like, wow, this is a mental block. This is me, like, not engaging in process. This is me thinking about something else. I need to find what that something else is, and I think that something else has to do with the death of the format that I'm in, of independent film. It's kind of why I started looking into Web3 and media, why I started, it was just like, okay, there's got to be something else in the process of developing, because people still want to watch stuff, right? And people still want to be entertained in these ways. And as a storyteller, I know I'm enough skill to get us around and to tell moving things, and to maybe make you laugh, milk through your nose. But if I have those skills and I don't have a marketplace, I'm in real trouble. And so I find that, like, it's very interesting, very tough right now. For the independent filmmakers, storytellers, and then just the thought, because that group, that I've been highlighting, for the past few years, of independent filmmakers in this space who went to Web3, like, okay, great, I'm gonna mint an NFT, and now they're making a movie. Well, those cuts are in now. Like the edits are in on those films that they made, and they're okay. Like, I'm just like, we're gonna do a whole nother episode on who we're giving a voice to in this space, but and at what levels. But they're being made, and so the animation specials, the animation shows that we all bought NFTs for, they got made. We covered them on the show. We sort of looked at, well, they're ignoring basic fundamentals about, like, the actual process of storytelling, and Web2, no FUD. Again, everyone just experimenting, but they were able to experiment in a way that we thought in film would be like, oh, great, $1 million budget, $2 million budget. Oh, I can work with that in independent film. That's great. This is amazing. So go ahead and just give me that, and then, like, I'll tell a story, like, that's could be compelling and really about something I think is very important. And so in this process, I think I'm kind of coming to that real strong conclusion that there is no help. The brothers who directed Puffy Chair, I keep thinking Duffer, but that's not Duffer, that's Stranger Things. Little name will come to me in 2 minutes, but they won Sundance with that film. They like, and they're just like expecting, okay, now here's where my life begins, and they came to this conclusion. They kept doing that at every stage of this, like, success, that the cavalry is not coming. And so the cavalry is not coming for Web3. The cavalry is not coming as Web3. The cavalry is not coming for filmmakers ever, it seems, right?
In half a mile, turn left
and
on
so
Deer Avenue.
we have just more and more anguish and uphill battle as creators, when marketplaces get abused, like independent cinema has been abused, like tax credits have been abused.
Deer Avenue.
I think everyone's going to start catching on to these tax credit things soon as massive abuse. I think once you start breaking down, in a bear markets, what's happening with some of the states. I mean, some states, straight up just got rid of them. They're just like, yeah, that was pretty bad. Like, we don't ever want to do that again. Like, we lost a lot of money. because people come and they try and take advantage, and that's it's just a sad fact that that's the mentality a lot of times. Like when I receive scripts of just like, oh hey, we want to do this. Oh cool, this is not bad. And like, we want to do it here because we think we can then put their salary in the state talent levels as well. It's for state costs, and like you try and like be realistic, but they're just like no, we can somehow like avert the system somehow, work the system. And that's the thing, is like in business, the business mindset, people think that that's okay. They're like,
In
oh yeah,
I've
really thought it through, and that's I'm smart enough to work around the loophole, and that's cheating. But as we're learning in Web3, that's kind of pretty much all of success in Web3, right? Sam Bankman-Fried's and like the stories that develop
62 West.
have that common thread of like, if you see somebody who's way too successful, it's because they believe they are working outside of the system. They are working because they believe that they're smarter than the system, and oh boy, that's what all of my films are about. And like, it really is just an idea that you like, oh yeah, I'm definitely outside of needing to think about these elements of legality of like of being able to be oh yeah, I don't need to really follow this guideline or actually what that's meant for is for this, but I can over leverage because I'm using my coin. And so it's just like and that's a way around it. But I think fundamentally you have to know 9 times out of 10 that you're working around that at the peril of your community. Sam wasn't thinking of that when he melted down not just his own exchange, but all of crypto. I mean, this is billions and billions, maybe $1 trillion of losses across all of crypto, just for a couple of bad actors. And so, yes, that means regulation, and yes, I here on the channel have been inviting regulation because it needs to happen so that things like this aren't happening on a regular basis, and that that this space doesn't get the bad name of just being the home of those who are getting around legalities. And so, as we're looking at this space as entrepreneurs, artists, that's the thing too. As I was saying, like, it's just like during the interview with Jordan, just like it's almost one and the same. When you're an artist, you're making, but you're also in the back of your head, you're like, okay, you're thinking about your audience, you're thinking about your, the person at the end of it, the experience of it. 9 times out of 10, right? If you're just there and you're just like painting like hell and you're expressing yourself, good on you. But I think a professional is always looking at the end user experience, and how and why you can make things that matter towards that end goal. And so, long-winded, are we? Stop with that, with these car things. You're very long-winded here, and I'm going to end this really soon. But I think that's pretty much in sum the idea of my feeling of why I'm not able to finish this edit as fast as I'd like, because I know it's going to depress me that it's not going to be as well loved. Like, I know it's good, I know it's the best I've ever done, but because of market conditions, I'm going to make the least I've ever made probably on a film. I'm gonna have done it for a very, very long time. And so it's gonna really hurt. It's gonna be a hard pill to swallow. But at the end of the day, as an artist, I have to take that on the chin. I can't hold for maybe better conditions or something. And trust me, I've been trying to like integrate Web3 and try and think like, whoa, what's the opportunity there? Is there an opportunity there? But for me, I just can't, because I started that project sort of, from a real Web 2 mentality. I feel like anytime that's happened in the past so far, and even in my own thinking, they only seem to be add-ons. Like add-ons like, oh, you can come to the premiere, give me 5 ETH. Like, it's just like all these like sort of things. Like, you could, maybe I'll reshoot a part and you'll have a speaking line. Give me 4 ETH. So there are these, actually that's 6 ETH. Come on. And these things just, you start adding them on as like experiences, add-on experiences to the thing, and very exploitative, very extraction-like, and it doesn't feel like I'm building a community. It doesn't feel like those things were made for building a community. It's meant to extract value from interest, or any support. I want to extract value from that, and to be fair, if it's in service of the story, I'm all for it. But I think clearly we're all a bit used to now being extracted for our value for individuals in this space who are representing centralized entities. They're hiding behind the centralized entities and doing shady stuff, and so and we're paying for it in a bad way currently in the marketplace. And we don't talk about markets here much on the show, other than to illustrate sort of the broader understanding of what's happening in the space and our ability in this space as artists, creators, and storytellers. And always, those three I think are hyphenated with entrepreneur. Anytime you're making something, creating something that you intend, or you hope to sell, even if you're hoping to sell that crazy painting that you're just throwing, if you're hoping to sell that, you have to be cognizant that there has to be an entrepreneurialness of it about that, because you're creating it to sell, to give to somebody else, to that they might find value in it. So you're putting value into your work, and that's kind of all to say about this. Again, it's like it's a long-winded way of getting around it, but it's just sort of the state of affairs for creators and entrepreneurs is really tough right now. It always has been, and we have the iron, maybe stomach lining of steel, because we eat all that iron as creators. But just know that as we talk about this stuff on the channel, I'll be covering again, the best cases, the best use cases possible, the best examples around in this space. But at the same time, you just have to be very wary about those that are now offering this way of jumping into this space, and even my own previous thing. I don't want to say it's supercharging your ability to make something. I think it can creatively in a lot of ways. I just don't want people to think about it as, this is going to make it easier for me to fund, to get get my money so that I can make my thing, because it's not. And it's just going to take a lot more hard work, and nobody ever wants to hear that, to build community around a concept or an idea that you have. It's just going to take a lot of work. Or you can just buy Oniforce, which if you have the Lucci and maybe you can come in with a hard offer, you can buy something. And I think that's a whole nother show of buying IP, because that IP in this space might just come with 10,000, let's call it 7 really holders, maybe 5,000, right? Who are really into a specific project. Subscribe, hit the bell notification, and I'll see you in the next one.